Cowboys Nation, stop everything you're doing right now because what I'm about to tell you could literally reshape the entire future of this franchise. The Dallas Cowboys might be on the verge of pulling off not one, but two blockbuster moves that would completely transform this defense overnight. We're talking about proven superstars. We're talking about players with all-pro credentials. We're talking about the kind of game-changing talent that could finally push this team over the top. If you're a true Cowboys fan, you need to hear every single word of this video. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on those notifications because we bring you the hottest Cowboys content every single day. And trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. All right, let me set the stage here because I need you to understand exactly where this team stands heading into the upcoming season. We all witnessed what happened last year. We all sat there in disbelief watching this defense get absolutely torched week after week. Big plays over the top, receivers running wide open, quarterbacks picking apart the secondary like it was target practice. It was painful, Cowboys Nation. It was embarrassing. And I know you felt it too because the comments, the reactions, the frustration from this fan base was unlike anything we've seen in years. This wasn't just a bad stretch of games. This was a systematic failure. This was a defense that had no identity, no playmakers in the back end, and absolutely no ability to close out games when everything was on the line. And here's the thing that makes this even more frustrating. This team has talent. This roster isn't devoid of skilled players, but talent without cohesion means nothing. Talent without leadership in the secondary means nothing. And talent without a true ball hawk who can flip momentum and make quarterbacks second-guess every single throw means absolutely nothing when you're trying to compete for a championship. That's the reality check, Cowboys Nation. That's where this franchise has been stuck. But what if I told you that all of that could change in the blink of an eye? What if I told you the front office is reportedly eyeing two of the most accomplished defensive backs in the entire league, and there's a legitimate path to bringing at least one of them, maybe even both, to Dallas this offseason? Now, before I reveal exactly who these players are and break down why these trades could actually happen, I need you to understand the bigger picture here. This isn't just about adding names to a roster. This isn't about creating headlines or generating buzz. This is about fundamentally changing what this defense can do. Under new defensive coordinator Christian Parker, there's a completely different vision for how this unit should operate. Parker wants versatility. He wants players who can disguise coverages, rotate before the snap, confuse quarterbacks, and most importantly, he wants playmakers who can take the ball away. That's been the missing ingredient in Dallas for years. And now, the opportunity to fix it might be staring this front office directly in the face. Let me introduce you to the first name that should have every Cowboys fan paying very close attention. We're talking about a three-time All-Pro selection. We're talking about a player with 21 career interceptions, 5 of which he's returned all the way to the end zone. We're talking about one of the most instinctive and rangy safeties this league has seen over the past decade. I'm talking about Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Cowboys Nation, the Miami Dolphins might actually be willing to move him. Now let me give you the full context here because this isn't just speculation pulled out of thin air. The Dolphins are in full-scale rebuild mode right now. They've been clearing veteran contracts left and right. They've been prioritizing draft capital and financial flexibility over keeping aging stars on expensive deals. And Minkah Fitzpatrick, as elite as he is, fits that profile of a player they might be willing to part with. He's turning 30 years old. He's set to earn over $15 million next season. And for a team that's clearly looking toward the future, that combination of age and salary makes him a potential trade candidate. But here's where it gets interesting for Dallas. Just because Miami might be willing to move him doesn't mean he's declined as a player. That's the key distinction that everyone needs to understand. Minkah Fitzpatrick is still an absolute force on the football field. Throughout his career, he's accumulated nearly 700 total tackles, over 60 pass breakups, 6 forced fumbles, and those 21 interceptions I mentioned earlier. This isn't a guy who's fallen off a cliff. This is a guy whose team simply can't afford to keep him given their current rebuilding strategy. And that mismatch between his production and his team's direction creates a window of opportunity for a franchise like Dallas to swoop in and capitalize. Think about what Fitzpatrick would bring to this defense, Cowboys Nation. Think about what it would mean to finally have a true center fielder roaming the back end of this secondary. A player with elite range who can cover ground sideline to sideline. A player with the football IQ to recognize route combinations before they even develop. A player who makes quarterbacks hesitant to throw deep because they know one mistake means 6 points going the other way. That's the kind of presence this defense has been lacking for years. And that's exactly what Minkah Fitzpatrick provides. And here's another layer to this. that makes the fit even more compelling. Christian Parker's defensive system is built around versatility in disguise. He wants defensive backs who can line up in multiple spots, handle different responsibilities, and keep offenses guessing about what coverage they're actually seeing. Fitzpatrick is literally the perfect player for that scheme. He can play deep safety and patrol the middle of the field. He can drop down into the box and support against the run. He can match up with tight ends and slot receivers in man coverage. He can rotate pre-snap and show one look before bailing into a completely different assignment after the ball is snapped. That kind of flexibility is incredibly rare, and it would give Parker the freedom to deploy this defense in ways we haven't seen from Dallas in a very long time. Now, I know some of you might be thinking about the draft. You might be wondering why the Cowboys shouldn't just address the safety position through the upcoming selection process. And I hear you. That's a valid thought. But here's the problem. The top safety prospect in this class is almost certainly going to be off the board before Dallas even gets a chance to pick. And after that, the drop-off at the position is significant. There's no day one starter waiting for Dallas in the middle rounds. There's no guaranteed fix available through conventional draft strategy. So the question becomes, do you want to gamble on developmental players and hope they eventually become something special? Or do you want to go acquire a proven all-pro who can walk through the door and immediately elevate your entire defense? For a team with championship aspirations, the answer should be obvious. And Cowboys Nation, we've literally seen this playbook work before. Cast your mind back to 2019. The Cowboys identified an opportunity to acquire Robert Quinn from a Dolphins team that was tearing things down and rebuilding. Dallas made the move, brought Quinn in, and what happened? 11.5 sacks in a single season. That's what happened. The front office recognized value, they acted decisively, and they reaped the benefits of a player who still had elite production left in the tank despite being deemed expendable by his former team. The Fitzpatrick situation feels eerily similar. A rebuilding Miami squad, a proven playmaker on a notable contract, a Cowboys team desperate for exactly what that player provides. The parallels are almost impossible to ignore. But let me be completely honest with you because I'm not going to sit here and pretend there are no concerns with this potential move. Fitzpatrick is turning 30, and in a league that's constantly getting younger and faster, that age number does carry some weight. His contract would represent a significant financial commitment, and this front office already has several other expensive obligations to navigate. So yes, there's risk involved, but the question is whether the potential reward outweighs that risk. And when you consider the immediate impact Fitzpatrick could have, the leadership he'd bring to a young secondary, the scheme versatility he'd provide to Christian Parker, and the ball-hawking ability this defense has been missing for years, the answer tilts heavily toward making this deal happen if the price is even remotely reasonable. Now let's shift gears because Fitzpatrick isn't the only name circulating in Cowboy circles right now. There's another potential target who might actually be even more shocking. We're talking about an 8-time Pro Bowl selection. We're talking about one of the most physically dominant cornerbacks of the last decade. We're talking about a player who has locked up the best receivers in the game and done so while commanding an $84 million contract. I'm talking about Jalen Ramsey, Cowboys Nation, and the craziest part of all of this is that Dallas might actually be able to get him for a 5th-round pick. I know that sounds absolutely insane. I know you're probably sitting there wondering how that's even remotely possible. But let me walk you through this scenario because when you understand the full context, it starts to make a lot more sense. Ramsey is currently on a massive contract that carries significant cap implications for any team rostering him. His cap hit is set to jump north of $17 million next season, and for a team like the Pittsburgh Steelers, that number might simply be too high for what they're trying to accomplish. Pittsburgh has always been an organization that values financial flexibility and sustainable roster building. If they look at Ramsey's contract and decide they'd rather reset with younger, cheaper options, that opens the door for a team like Dallas to potentially swoop in and acquire him at a fraction of his actual value. And here's the thing about Ramsey that so many people seem to forget. This man is still playing at an incredibly high level. In his most recent season, he recorded 88 tackles, 8 pass deflections, 3 sacks, and another Pro Bowl selection. That's 5 Pro Bowls in the last 6 seasons. Cowboys Nation. That's not a player who's falling off. That's not a player who's coasting on reputation. That's a player who's still performing at an elite level and contributing in multiple phases of the game. The notion that Ramsey is somehow washed or past his prime is completely disconnected from reality when you actually look at the production he's still putting up. Now imagine what happens if the Cowboys actually pull this off. Imagine Jalen Ramsey on one side of the field and Darren Bland on the other. That's a nightmare for every offensive coordinator in the league. That's a situation where Dallas can play aggressive man coverage without constantly worrying about getting beaten deep. That's a scenario where the pass rush gets more time to work because receivers can't get open quickly. That's a defense that can disguise blitzes, rotate coverages, and create confusion because you have two corners who can be trusted to hold their own regardless of the assignment. The ripple effects of adding a player like Ramsey would extend far beyond just his individual contribution. It would elevate everyone around him and completely change the way opposing teams prepare for this defense.
And once again, the Christian Parker factor cannot be overstated here. Parker wants intelligent, physical, versatile defensive backs who can handle multiple responsibilities and adapt to different situations. That describes Jalen Ramsey perfectly. Ramsey isn't just a boundary corner who stands on an island and shadows receivers. He can play outside, slide into the slot, support against the run, and even contribute as a blitzer when the situation calls for it. He's a chess piece, not just a player. He gives the defensive coordinator options and flexibility that most corners simply can't provide. That kind of value is extremely rare, and when you combine it with the potential acquisition cost of a fifth-round pick, this starts looking like one of the most lopsided value propositions we've seen in recent memory.
Now let me address the elephant in the room because I know exactly what some of you are thinking. What about the contract? What about the cap implications? What about the long-term financial commitment required to keep a player like Ramsey on the roster? Those are all legitimate concerns, and I'm not going to pretend they don't exist. Adding Ramsey's contract to this roster would absolutely create additional cap pressure. It would require careful maneuvering and strategic planning from the front office. But here's the thing. If you're Dallas, you're not making this move thinking about 5 years from now. You're making this move because you believe you have a championship window right now, and you're willing to be aggressive to maximize that window. You're making this move because the defense desperately needs proven talent in the secondary, and Ramsey provides exactly that at a cost that's almost too good to pass up. Cowboys Nation, let me bring this all together and paint the full picture for you. This franchise is at a crossroads. The defensive struggles of last season exposed serious flaws that need to be addressed. The secondary was a liability. The lack of playmakers was glaring. And the inability to close out games when it mattered most cost this team dearly. But the opportunity to fix those problems might be presenting itself right now. The Dolphins are rebuilding and potentially willing to move one of the best safeties in football. The Steelers might be looking to get out of a big contract and could let an 8-time Pro Bowler go for minimal compensation. And the Cowboys, with a new defensive coordinator who values exactly the traits these players possess, are positioned to capitalize on both situations. Now let's talk about the fan reaction to all of this because the discourse among Cowboys supporters has been absolutely electric. Some fans are completely on board, arguing that this team needs to be aggressive and stop playing it safe. They're pointing to the championship drought and arguing that calculated risks are necessary to break through. They're citing the Robert Quinn precedent and suggesting that the front office has done this successfully before and should do it again. On the other side, you have fans who are more cautious, worried about the age of these players, concerned about the contract implications, and nervous about betting on veterans instead of developing young talent. It's a fascinating debate, and honestly, both perspectives have merit. But here's my take, Cowboys Nation. When you have the chance to acquire proven elite talent at a reasonable cost, you have to seriously consider it. This isn't about chasing big names for the sake of headlines. This is about identifying players who can genuinely fix your biggest weaknesses and give your team a legitimate chance to compete at the highest level. Minkah Fitzpatrick and Jalen Ramsey aren't just name recognition moves. They're football solutions to real football problems. And if the front office can navigate the financial aspects and acquire either one of them, let alone both, this defense transforms from a liability into a potential strength almost overnight. The speculation about what happens next is driving Cowboys fans absolutely crazy right now. Will Jerry Jones pull the trigger? Will the front office prioritize veteran acquisitions over draft capital? Will Christian Parker get the kind of players he needs to truly implement his vision? These are the questions that will define this offseason, and the answers could determine whether this team takes a significant step forward or remains stuck in neutral. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the drama couldn't be more compelling. So, here's what I need from you right now. Drop a comment below and tell me what you think about these potential moves. Would you trade for Minkah Fitzpatrick? Would you bring in Jalen Ramsey for a 5th-round pick? Do you want to see this front office be aggressive, or do you think they should play it safe and focus on the draft? I want to hear your takes, I want to see your opinions, and I want this comment section absolutely buzzing with discussion. And if you've made it this far in the video, do me a favor and smash that like button. It helps the channel grow, it helps more Cowboys fans find this content, and it helps us get closer to that 15,000 subscriber goal. We're building something special here, and I want you to be part of it. Cowboys Nation, this offseason could be the one that changes everything. Stay tuned, stay locked in, and I'll see you in the next one.